Shalom, I'm Rabbi Fred Klein, the rabbi at the Greater Miami Jewish Federation. Bereishit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. But then in chapter 2, B'yom asot Adonai Elohim eretz v'shamayim, on the day that God created earth and heaven. So which one is it? Was heaven created before earth, or was earth created before heaven? This in yeshiva would be generally called a klutz question, an illogical question. Come on, who really cares? Yet, this debate of what came first was actually a debate that was argued between none other than the two great schools of Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai during the times of the Tanaim. Now, what is this all about? Is this just a debate about the mechanics of biblical creation? I don't think so. So what is it? Really, it's a philosophy lesson masked as a biblical conversation about creation. As each of these opinions don't just quote those verses, but also the logic. Think about it. Heaven and earth. The next world versus this world. The spiritual versus the physical. What does Beit Hillel say? Beit Hillel says, listen, you build a house. What do you do when you build a house? Do you build the second floor first, or do you build the first floor first? In other words, this world, the first floor, is the primary world. Then heaven's built. Then the second floor is built. In other words, this world in which we live is significant. This is where we situate our lives. Beit Shammai says nothing doing, not so fast. When you build a throne, do you build the throne itself, or do you build the footstool first? Of course, you build the throne. That's the whole purpose. What do you need a footstool for if you don't have the throne? And so the very purpose of this world is spiritual, are the heavens. This world is like a simple footstool. This dispute between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai reflects a classic dispute about the meaning of the world in which we live. Beit Shammai. Here and in other places throughout rabbinic tradition, they reflect an ascetic disposition. We should be focusing our lives on eternal values and let go of the temporal. Our minds should always be fixated upwards. The world in which we live, it's like a prose door. It's like a entryway. It's a footstool. It's like a test to distract us from the palace, from the real place in which we are fixating our minds. Beit Hillel says no. The only way to holiness is a holiness that is part of this world. Beit Hillel rejects this dualism expressed by Beit Shammai. So what's our role? Our role is to make the foundations of the house holy, to build the heavens above based upon our actions here below. Now, this distinction is not only philosophical, but was expressed in many of their halachot, legal disputes. I'd like to bring one up, which I think is very important. Shammai used to teach that all of his life he ate only in honor of Shabbat. So let's say he found a very nice animal, because they were not vegetarians then. He said, let this animal be for Shabbat. But if later in the week he found a better one, he put that one aside and let the other one go. So he would always be preparing for Shabbat throughout the entire week. But Hillel the elder, Hillel had a different idea. Whenever he had food that came to him, he said that was for the sake of his heaven, as he taught, Baruch Hashem Yom Yom, blessed is God every day. There are some people in this world that are Shabbat Jews, who organize their lives around transcendence. That's Shammai. The world is divided between secular and holy, profane and sacred. And yet there's Hillel. The goal of life is to bring Shabbat into the week, the holiness into the secular. Thus, any food that came to him even during the week was an opportunity for him to bless. God can be found in the context of our daily embedded lives, and this idea is one of the foundations of many Hasidic ideas. Now, I think contemporary Jews often embrace Hillel at the expense of Shammai. Interestingly, the Tanaim did not decide on this dispute, and they quote a third opinion that both heaven and earth were created at the same time. And I think during these days we need to take Beit Shammai a bit more seriously. Yes, Hillel says we can create holiness in the context of our daily lives. However, there's a danger. Perhaps the daily context of our lives, our needs, our biases, our goals, our interests, our lifestyle can actually get in the way of the ultimate values that we profess. Are we bringing Shabbat into the week, or are we bringing the week into Shabbat? And that's the challenge of Shammai. Perhaps we need to focus more on our ultimate values that we preach. We need to become more like Shabbat Jews these days. Perhaps in our daily lives we are not as holy as we should be, and we need to attend to more of our ultimate values that are taught by our traditions. Perhaps we are too linked to the materialism that defines the present moment. Think about the transcendentalist poet William Wordsworth, who, while not a theist, made a similar point about the inability for us to be in relationship with something greater than ourselves, and that we are poor for it. Wordsworth wrote, "The world is too much with us, late and soon, getting and spending. We lay waste our powers. Little we see in nature that is ours. We have given our hearts away, a sordid boon." Yes, during these times, perhaps it's time for us also to think about Shammai and what Shammai can teach us about the world of the Spirit. Shabbat Shalom.